I frequently get this question of how could all the animals possibly fit on the boat? You know, we grow up maybe learning the story of Noah and the ark, and you hear of two of all the animals get on the boat, and then we start to think, there are a lot of animals that exist on this planet. How could they all possibly fit on one boat? Well, there are two Christian responses. One, much more accepted. The second one, much more controversial. But each of these answers, I think, does a great job responding to this question, so we don't have to worry and think, oh, how could this possibly be true? How could this work? It's impossible. No, it is possible if we understand a few basic things. So the first one, I think much more accepted pretty much by everybody, is this. If you remember from your basic biology class, animals are broken up into things like kingdom, phyla, domain, class, species, order, genus, that sort of thing. I just butchered that list, but you get the idea. Now, we recognize that a lot of the animals that we see today have evolved much more recently. Microevolutionary changes, adaptation, or even breeding, right? So no one would think there are like two canines, two corgis, two Great Danes, two pit bulls, two, pugs, right? You get the idea. Right, a lot of these dog breeds and sort of things are much more recent breeding that we have done. Back when the flood took place, all these animals didn't necessarily exist. And so what we see is that there are probably two of each of the canine kind, right? That then led to wolves and dogs and everything. Probably weren't panthers and lions and all that, and cheetahs, probably more the two of the feline kind. And then since the ark, there were microevolutionary adaptive changes that took place that then created more of the diversification that we see within that kind of animal. And so I think this is a very simple response. Say, yeah, they're just two of each kind, however you want to break that down on the ark, easily then they could fit. Now the much more controversial answer is answering and responding to the question, well, was the flood global or was it local? Did it cover the entire earth or part of the earth? And if the flood was local, which I'm not going to discuss the arguments for that now, I do have a podcast in the link below, the description below, where you can check out and see some arguments for a local flood. I think they're interesting. But if it was local, then you only had to have two of every kind of animal within the context of where the flood was covering the earth. And so you probably didn't have kangaroos hopping all the way from Australia to get on the boat all the way back to Australia, penguins doing the same from Antarctica. Those animals stayed safe and sound where they were, and you only had to have two of each kind of animal within the area of where the flood covered. Again, much more controversial, not discussing that argument there with you now, but if that's the way the flood worked, then that's easy, two of each kind from that area. If the flood was global, you still did not have two of every single thing that we see now, but two within each kind, canine kind, the feline species, and therefore they could fit. So I think these are two different Christian responses that both easily answer this question, and so hopefully take this off the table in a response that says, that makes sense. This is a believable story. It's not unbelievable. I can see how God could do this. So if this was helpful in responding to a question you have, why don't you subscribe below, check out the other videos, and see if there are responses to other questions you have about Christianity.